Late at night, a heavy rain poured down over the palace, washing away everything around, which clearly foreshadowed something not very pleasant. The maid who came to the director's office informed Mrs. Elsa that a special student had just arrived and was waiting. It was a long-awaited meeting, the lady asked, holding the documents about the new student in her hands, which room they went to. The maid was surprised because she did not understand whether she was really going to go there. The answer was positive, because the girl wanted to meet this student personally, since she would be keeping special supervision, and she asked the maid to take her. The maid was worried because they were stubbornly resisting and had not yet managed to get them into the campus. They were messing around at the main gate, everything was right. This is how the main character of this world should be. The carriage slowly drove up to the gates, which had been previously opened for this arrival. Everything had been prepared in advance. A man came out of it, dressed in a white shirt which was already completely wet from the rain. He resisted because he thought that they were absolutely no one here. Who dared to touch Lucian von Kalide, heir to the Duchy of Kalide? He was being held by 2 guards, and it was clearly difficult for them to hold such a rowdy new student as he was trying to break free and run away. Lady Elsa stood and watched all this, while the maid next to her held an umbrella so that she would not get wet from the rain. The guards, as soon as they noticed the lady, immediately asked for forgiveness for disturbing them. They would immediately take care of the young man. The girl looked at this circus with all her menace, as if they couldn't do anything worthwhile. This shouldn't be the case. She ordered the first thing to be done was to close the gates, which had been open all this time. And secondly, the guards should have calmed him down or just humbled him. Lucian was shocked by such an order, because how dare they do this to him? Before he could say anything else, he was immediately hit on the neck. The blow was strong because the guard was wearing iron armor. The man fell to the ground with a thud, losing consciousness, and for everyone there it looked like a normal day. Invisible chains slowly enveloped him. Still with the same coldness in her eyes and disgust for the young man, she ordered him to be put in solitary confinement. Now he will not leave this place for a very long time, because she will not allow him to go out, intending to maintain special surveillance so that he does not escape by accident. In the meantime, she should prepare her plan for survival, because this hero, who now can't even resist the pathetic guards, is actually very dangerous. He is one of those who will kill her one day. It's all like in the novel, The Trampled Flower is the Most Fragrant, a fantasy novel that was downloaded onto the girl's phone. The 3 main characters are Lucian von Kalide, Benedict Lüneburg, Dante de Savi Oppenheimer, a dark story of a reverse harem in which the 3 main characters have a love for the heroine that borders on madness, and she becomes the lover of one of them. It turned out to be Marquis Oppenheimer, who controls the criminal world of the entire empire. That's why she became the villain, Elsa Leferian. Acting on behalf of Marquis Oppenheimer, the owner of the Rosenkreuz boarding school, she ruled as a truly arrogant and vile villain. If her life were to be described in a few lines, she would have bullied one of the main characters, Lucian, been obsessed with Marquis Oppenheimer and pretended to be a suicide bomber, and after Marquis abandoned her, driven by jealousy, she committed terrible acts against the heroine. And in the end, 3 sharp weapons are pointed at her, wanting to finish her off quickly. She cried because the Marquis, her lover, abandoned her, and as a result she was killed by the 3 main characters. But the girl who got into Elsa's body did not want to live like the real her, and to prevent this from happening, when the heroine appears and all attention switches to her, she will disappear, as if she had never been there. However, if the plot follows the original, despite all efforts, the main characters will try to kill her. Therefore, in order to avoid death, she must, if possible, establish friendly relations with the main characters. While the lady walked along the long corridors and slowly looked at everything around her, she was thinking up her next steps for survival on the fly. Her first step was to win the favor of the #1 protagonist, Lucian, who was dragged into the boarding school today. The lady inserted the key into the locked room where the man was. After the door opened, an ominous aura immediately began to emanate from the room. Apparently, he had long since regained consciousness and had been waiting all this time. He raised his head, and with all the anger and contempt in his eyes, he looked at the lady who had just opened the door and was looking at him. Although his powers had not yet awakened, but his spirit was like a beast, did she really think that she would survive after kidnapping the heir of the Kalide Duchy? This was the most daring impudence. Lucian's hands were chained to the bed. He was treated like a real villain here, but he just wanted to know who sent her to do this. It turned out to be his cousin. He was the one who gave the order, as in the original, the young man knew nothing. It seemed to him that Elsa was talking nonsense, because his brother would never do such a thing. Out of anger, he already started shouting at the girl, who sent her, "Who is this monster trying to quarrel him with his brother? He will not fall for her words." The girl tried to explain to him whether he even knew where he was now. It was the Rosenkreutz boarding school. He was shocked by what she said, but it was not surprising. Even a great young duke would react like that. Rosenkreutz boarding school is widely known as the Rose Cross Estate, a prison disguised as an educational institution where heirs, illegitimate children, and other burdens of noble families are imprisoned for an indefinite period. It is a prison for the highborn. The reason why the main character, Lucian, ended up here is simple. After the early death of the previous Duke and Duchess of the Kalide family, Lucian's cousin became the acting head of the house. He took on guardianship over Lucian until he came of age. But in the end, he betrayed Lucian and locked him in this place. So in the original, Elsa treats him like a toy, mocking him in every possible way, until he awakened a special power within himself that could only be passed down through the Duke's direct family line, and eventually became the first to escape from this place. This is the reason why she needs Lucian the most, and she will stop at nothing. The lady's current lover and de facto owner of this boarding school, Marquis Dante. With his violent temper, he would never let her go just like that, especially since as the manager, she knows all the secrets of this place, which is why she needs Lucian's help for the escape plan. Elsa came much closer to him and stood right at his feet. The young duke knew what kind of place this was. For your information, the fact that he is here is a secret known to a very small circle of people, which means that his arrival was carried out with extreme caution. The young man did not want to admit all the words that were said. It was a very strong blow for him. He tried with all his might to get out of the shackles that were on his hands and were rubbing his skin badly, because his brother could not do this to him. For an 18-year-old who has just reached that age, being betrayed by someone he trusted must have been an extremely hard blow and affected him greatly. The room began to fill with an ominous aura once again. Since this place was the Rosenkreutz dormitory, then she couldn't be anyone other than Lady Letherian. He finally recognized her as the Marquis's lover and the infamous villainess of the dorm. That should be quite obvious. However, she asked him to understand one thing, sitting down on the floor in front of him to show that she was on the same level as him. The young duke did not understand what was happening, still thinking that she had a sinister plan for him, but the lady did this only for the sake of survival. She smiled, showing that she was on his side and could earn his trust in her. It was deep night outside. The dark blue clouds were strewn with stars like lanterns. After talking with the young man, Elsa left his new room, closing the door behind her and slamming it loudly. She stood at the door for a while longer and thought about everything that had just happened between them. When the girl said she was on his side, he had a look that said it all, complete distrust. This may be a normal reaction, but even if it is hard to believe, he must trust her. Inside that boarding school, all the traps left by Dante will hurt even after he awakens the power and escapes, but Elsa knows them all and will eventually help her escape safely. So when she says she is on his side, it is not a bluff, but the pure truth that he must believe. Having dealt with everything that was bothering her, she walked further down the corridor in order to return to her room. An unknown man was waiting for her in the corridor. Because it was late at night, nothing could be seen, and only a small ray of light made its way into the corridor and illuminated it a little. Noticing him, the lady tensed up a little and even got a little scared because she didn't expect to see anyone else here. Something very strange and incomprehensible was happening, which made her even more tense. An angry Victor, the director of the boarding school, like her, was waiting for her. Although he holds the same position as Elsa due to his inferiority complex as a commoner, he also bullied her. In the original story, he was the one who exploited Elsa's weakness, her fear of Dante's disapproval, threatening her by saying that he would report everything to Dante if she crossed the line. And today it will not be any different. Victor asked to sit quietly for at least one day. His eyes, as usual, looked ominous and cold. The lady met the young Duke of Kalide without his permission. What could she possibly be thinking when she did that? She continued to stand and listen to him. She found it funny from all the words he had just said. His words sounded a little strange, because one of the manager's jobs is to keep an eye on special students, so why would she need his permission? Victor was angry at the girl's words. He tried to object that the issue was not about permission at all, but he was interrupted. asked what the issue was then. It's not something she can decide on her own, so in his terms, she needs to beg him every time to figure it all out together. He was very surprised by this, thinking that she would just sit and endure, like Elsa in the original story. If so, then he was deeply mistaken. Phrases flew through the girl's head as he complained that she was spoiled, did not know her place, did not do anything that a manager should do, even a piece of bread in her mouth, treated with such contempt. She was tired of this attitude. She just asked to let her earn money for food in peace. It's not a problem. The man was already at the limit. He did not understand what she meant. The lady only mentally laughed at him that he was so surprised, because these were all the insults that he threw behind her back. Coming to his senses, he began to get angry, saying that this was a completely different matter. Duke Khalid was a special student. Special student. In the Rosenkreuz dormitory, these students are treated with special attention because if information about such a student becomes known to the world, it can lead to large-scale consequences. These students are closely monitored under strict control. And Victor must be afraid because he doesn't want to lose such a high position, which was too funny. When she finished laughing, she looked at the man mockingly because apparently he had been sitting in this boarding school for so long that now he really considered himself someone. If he doesn't like the way she's doing her job as a manager, then he should change something. Then let him go again this time and snitch to the Marquis. He knows well whether he will praise you for it or get angry, right? He looked shocked. Maybe it was her attitude or the fact that she called Dante Marquis. Apparently it sounded strange coming from her. Elsa in the original flaunted her relationship with Dante, but most importantly, she loved to call him by his name. But she is not the real Elsa. Because she plans to run away, she does not need such honors from everyone. It was early morning, and Lucian had been sitting and sleeping on the floor in his new room the entire time. Lady Lefarian entered the room with a large wooden box containing a medical kit. She was clearly in a good mood. He was silent and did not answer the question whether he had slept well. His clothes were all dirty, and there were wounds on his body from yesterday. Surprisingly, he was calm. He could at least try to understand the meaning of what she said yesterday, because she thought that he would test her. Elsa decided to ask the young man if he would mind if she helped him undress. It sounded very strange. His look said that this woman had clearly gone crazy. Lucian was rolling on the floor yesterday while they were subduing him. He definitely got some injuries, and if something hurts, she offers treatment. Even though she suggested it with good intentions, the protagonist still didn't trust her because she didn't inspire confidence. As expected, he remained silent. If she was going to back down just because of his reaction, she might not even think about winning him over. The girl looked at him carefully while saying that he also needed to change his clothes. As she looked at him, she noticed something was wrong, that his clothes were hiding something. She was surprised by what she saw because she didn't think his wounds were as serious as she thought. The lady grabbed the young man by the collar of his shirt with both hands. He was shocked by this action, not understanding what she was doing, but the lady wanted him to let her examine his wounds and not move. The young duke endured until the very end, but due to his great mistrust of her, he pushed her away with a kick, which of course was a very rude act. Elsa fell to the floor. It was a very painful landing, and all the medicines that were in her medicine cabinet fell out onto the floor. There was an ominous aura in the room. The man was angry at her for her actions, ordering her to leave him alone. But he needed treatment, and even though she expected this reaction from him, he probably wouldn't let his guard down so easily around her. Isn't that how he will eventually get a chance to escape from the boarding school, and he won't have to worry so much around her? The lady took the tool, straddling the man again, looking at him. She said that she doesn't like men younger than her. It's just not her taste, so he shouldn't worry. He was very embarrassed by her actions, because before no one had ever treated him as brazenly as she did. She means that she doesn't have any bad intentions, she'll just quickly check the wound and treat it, so he shouldn't make any unnecessary movements. Otherwise, he might get worse, even though Lucian didn't like her being near him, but treatment was still necessary. Still, it was good that he didn't resist, because with light movements she could help him. Having finished with everything, the girl put all the instruments and medicines back into the first aid kit, although her mood was no longer so positive. The treatment was carried out, and she also changed him into new clothes and threw away the old ones, so now she can leave. Finally, she wished him good health and tried to put a smile on her upset face. Because sooner or later, one day he will be able to escape from this boarding school. These were very sincere words, but the young duke still turned away, still not trusting every word she said. Elsa Lefarian, she declared that she would never enter into a marriage of convenience, and she herself became the mistress of the most dangerous leader of the empire, Marquis Oppenheimer. He heard that she behaved arrogantly, relying on the Marquis' support. The lady was worried while she was changing his clothes. She asked him to control the process, and if it hurt, let him say right away. "She's not what they say, he seems to be getting too soft-hearted." It was only in this place, the Rosenkreuz boarding school, that a simple act of kindness from a humble caretaker shook the young man to the depths of his soul. Suddenly he realized that if he thought about it, he hadn't heard the click of the door lock. It must really be open. Without thinking, Lucian ran to the door handle to check if it was true or not. It was indeed open, which was quite surprising for such a place. It was a mistake or a trap, he thought. Even if it was a trap, it didn't matter. He needed to figure out whether his brother had really betrayed him. That was more important right now. There was a very strange feeling in his soul. He could easily break these chains with his own hands, but he couldn't decide why the young duke was so worried. Was he really afraid that if he ran away, this woman would get into trouble? He needs to pull himself together. He shouldn't think about a woman he barely knows. He should concentrate on escaping. The lady stood in her room and looked thoughtfully out the window, pondering something. She waited for a very long time, and this moment came because quite a lot of time had passed. It had to happen now. Lucian should have already tried to escape. As she expected, the academy did not immediately fall into chaos due to the escape of a special student. But after a while, panic began, and everyone shouted that the prisoner had escaped. But in the end, they were able to stop him and throw him to the floor. The guards twisted his arms and did not allow him to free himself, pressing on him more and more. The young man was screaming to be finally let go, when suddenly a girl came up to him and stood right in front of his face. Lady Elsa stood and looked at him, trying not to reveal that she was on his side. Everything was going exactly according to her plan. Since he had not yet awakened his power, he could not even leave the walls of the academy. She knew better than anyone that Lucian would try to escape, and yet she deliberately left the door open so that he would understand in advance that it was impossible to escape without Elsa. From now on, until Lucian awakens his power, she needs to become his ally. Only then, as she wants, they can escape this hell together. Apparently, even Victor found out about Lucian's escape, judging by the fact that he came here. He was told that Lady Elsa was the last person to visit the boy's solitary confinement cell. He said arrogantly that information spreads quickly here. He apologized for his impudence, but this time, isn't it his duty? She was simply enjoying such humiliation of the lady, but what was wrong with that? He only came to scold her. Victor just made excuses that no, he would never dare to do such a thing. He only asked that from now on they be more careful and not allow such things to happen. And besides, he would now take responsibility for a special student, trusting that there would be no objections on this matter. But she didn't agree. After all, she was the one who let him go, so she should be the one to deal with it, right? In any case, the girl is tired, so she will leave from here, ordering to take this disobedient child and follow her. Before she left, Victor called out to Lady Elsa to wait, as he had not yet finished speaking. He seemed to be going crazy, saying that this situation had gone too far. Perhaps they should inform Marquis Oppenheimer about this. And here again, the same threats flew in her direction. Everything repeated itself once again. Of course, the real Elsa would have begged him not to do this, because she didn't want to disappoint him. Dante played with her like a cheap toy, because Elsa's desperate attachment amused him. And for the girl, Dante was almost a god who saved her from a hellish life. But she is not Elsa from the original story, not the one who blindly loves Dante. Let him do as he liked best. The Marquis did not expect anything from her as a manager. Such threats don't work on her anymore, so let her come up with something wittier. Victor was insulted and humiliated by her words, which made him feel great anger. This girl had been acting too strange lately. How could such changes have happened? The girl calmly walked down the corridor to the young man's new room, while the guards dragged him away, even though he tried to get out. Victor is becoming more and more bold, but this won't work at all. No matter how hard she tries to prove herself, the servants take their cue from the man who has real power. If she wants Lucian's escape to go smoothly, she can't leave Victor unattended. Before the Marquis returns, she will have to do everything in her power to seize power in the Rosen boarding school. Finally, the guards took the young duke to their room, throwing him forcefully to the floor. A child who has done very badly must receive an appropriate punishment. She ordered the guards and the maid to leave the room because the measures she would take would be terrible and the presence of strangers here was of no use. Everyone left the room, saying goodbye to the lady. They left her alone with the prisoner. There was a deathly and at the same time frightening silence because only the two of them remained in the room and no one knew what would happen next. After some time, she turned to the young duke because now he had to understand the whole essence of what had happened. But the man still didn't understand anything because it seemed like he should have been punished somehow. After all, no matter how much he fought alone, he would not be able to escape from here. There was no need to even think about it. Even now, he is in solitary confinement, tied up like a miserable dog. However, he has two options in this situation. Either he grabs the only chance to escape, or, lifting his head by the chin, he will be completely crushed in this boarding school. Elsa looked at him mesmerizingly. At that moment, she could be trusted. But suddenly, this was another of her traps. After looking at him like that for a little while longer, she removed her hand from his face because it was up to him to decide. She immediately left the room, leaving him alone so that he could think about her words and make the right decision. For a long time he thought about everything that had happened. These thoughts did not give him peace. He could not even sleep. He didn't understand what was bothering him more, the question of why he managed to get stuck in such a place, or the doubt in something so important. It all drove him crazy. Will he be able to grasp this thread of freedom, or will he be trampled like a miserable dog? Elsa Lefarian, part of him wants to take the hand she holds out to him, and part of him doesn't trust it. But why does this woman continue to offer him help? She should be in serious trouble for his escape, but she didn't even question him, which was very strange. It was too funny and incomprehensible at the same time. All the information he received put too much pressure on the young duke, the heir of the Khaled house, who pitifully clings to the damned dormitory manager. He was completely dejected by this news because it was too pitiful for someone like him. At this time, Mr. Dante's servant came to tell him important news. The servant looked like a lifeless puppet, performing all his movements automatically and acting only on orders. It was a report on the Rosenkreuz Academy, and while the man was putting on his gloves, he ordered to continue. He said that due to Lady Elsa's mistake, the special student tried to escape, and it was reported that a conflict arose between Victor and the girl over this matter. The Marquis took a new cigar, saying that he told them that Khalid needed special care. It was just a pity that they didn't even remember that. Well, this was not her first mistake, and apparently it was time to get rid of it. However, there is something strange. They say that Lady Elsa began to behave completely differently. Everyone noticed this. She should have been desperately searching for the master, but she didn't try to find him at all. And even Victor's threat to report this to the Marquis did not seem to alarm her at all. But the man did not believe that the lady had become like this in such a short period of time. This woman couldn't behave like this. She seemed to be made of roses and honey, the one who tasted as sweet as that very trampled flower. The way she clung to him so desperately seemed very funny, which is why he relegated her to the humble role of mistress. But the more she doubted love, seeing how Dante communicated with completely different ladies at the ball. Also, late at night, she did not understand why he fell asleep so suddenly and tried to wake him up, which made her less different from other women who were copies of her behavior. He was tired of this and did not want to see this woman around anymore. It was quite recently, and then suddenly Elsa became completely different. Not like before, something completely changed her. This could be a lot of fun. He should come and see for himself soon. A smile full of childish cruelty and curiosity about how Lady Elsa could love such a man. Dante de Savi Oppenheimer captured the dark side of the Arodia system. He received the title of Marquis through his own strength and cunning. The servant stayed by his side, helping him in everything, but his manner of not trusting anyone and not loving anyone was always suffocating. He just hopes that the girl will not become another of Dante's toys. The next morning, the girl was working in her office on some documents. Her attention was riveted only to the papers. While she was thinking, there was a knock on her door. She immediately raised her head and invited the one who knocked into the office. The maid came into the office with the morning answer. She served breakfast to the student Khalid. The girl asked again if they had really served it. She tried, but the student again refused to eat, no matter how much they offered him. The lady put away all her documents because she could no longer work. After escaping, she feared that trying to conquer Lucian directly would be too obvious, so she entrusted his care to servants. The lady asked to prepare a new dish because she would try to figure it out herself. It might be because of the incident a few days ago, but that wasn't the main thing. Now she had to help the man come to his senses as quickly as possible. As the new dish was prepared, Lady Elsa came to the man, asking if he had slept well yesterday. He didn't even look in her direction. He just sat on the bed and was silent. She felt sorry to look at him, and this even made her a little confused, and she began to worry. The young duke looked completely devastated. He just stared at one point and did not react to anything. Like a bird with broken wings that would never fly again, it was understandable after being dragged into that hellish academy and not being allowed to escape. She came closer to him with a tray of food, saying that she brought something to eat. He looked very terrible. The lady heard that he had not eaten for a whole week. Finally, he looked at her. The girl was asking to eat at least a little. Lucian ordered the tray of food to be removed from him, but she didn't want to do it because he really needed to eat. He couldn't last long like this. At least he could drink the soup, but he just started screaming for her to take the tray away from him. Unable to bear it any longer, he knocked the tray out of her hands, shouting that he didn't need it. It was painful, because he also touched the lady herself. He kept shouting at her to take everything and get the hell out. He hates her and everything that is happening here. He must be confused. It is only natural that he does not trust her and treats her with hatred. But he should not torture himself like that and refuse any food that is offered to him. No matter how lost and broken he was, he will awaken a beautiful power within himself and return his home. The heroine will be able to heal his mental wounds, so his survival is guaranteed. But without him, she will be mercilessly sacrificed to make Lucian shine. The escape plan will be completely ruined, and she will die, just like that. She was not happy with this outcome of events, but what could she do? She was powerless. So she asked him if he wanted to die of starvation. But what did it matter to her whether he died in the end or not? The man thought that the problem was that she was asking only because of the manager's debts. After these words, he suddenly changed his mind. It was clearly not because of this. If he dies, the manager will be blamed, so in the end it will be because of Marquis Oppenheimer, the man he clings to so desperately. She was just afraid that he would leave her. Elsa didn't understand what nonsense he had just said, because now it wasn't true. Isn't that the main reason? The reason why she tries so hard, clings so desperately? Because she doesn't want to be abandoned by the Marquis, whom she loved so much. She held on as best she could, because she couldn't lose her composure. Lucian was her only lifeline. She couldn't let everything fall apart between them. It was all true. She would do everything possible to save the young duke, but she does not help him in order to win the Marquis's love and trust. She just wants to live. From these words, she could not hold back her tears. Not like the psychopath obsessed with the Marquis or the arrogant villain of the dorm like everyone says, but simply like Elsa Lefarian. Was it really that much to ask? That was the whole reason she was helping. She just wanted him to understand it too. The feelings she experienced were very strange and even frightening. She knows that Elsa is just a pawn, created for this story simply to add spice. Even if she was just a supporting villain, shouldn't she have the right to live the way she wanted? When the lady came to her senses, she realized what she was doing now. She couldn't let Lucian see her so weak, having decided that she needed to get out of this place now, otherwise it might be too late later. For the man, it all looked somehow strange and incomprehensible. Running out of the room, she tried to stop her tears, which began to flow down her face like a waterfall. She said too much that he shouldn't have known why she did it. Lucian probably doesn't care about her circumstances, but what if he starts doubting her because of this? As she walked and thought about it, she was able to come up with a plan that would help her get out of this situation. The young duke sat motionless on the bed all this time, staring at some point. It was the first time that Elsa, who always wore a perfect smile, showed her emotions so openly. She seemed a little too nervous, clearly worried about her. Putting all thoughts about it aside, he didn't understand who he was even worried about. He was the one hanging around in this place and doing nothing like an idiot. The man walked up to the window, looking out at the street. He wondered if it was true that it was impossible to escape from here. He was tormented by the question of whether his brother had really betrayed and abandoned him. It was hard to believe. He lay back down on the bed, curled up into a ball because he no longer understood anything. It seemed to him that he really wanted to die, just so as not to hear confirmation of betrayal. Lucian fell asleep on the bed. The bright light began to blind him in the eyes. He barely opened his eyes, not understanding what was happening. He He saw Lady Elsa, who asked him to get up because she had brought him dinner. The young duke thought it was some kind of hallucination, but when she screamed, he realized it was not so. After such tears, he did not think that she would return so soon. He should have eaten after all, but he didn't even answer her or look at her, as if she wasn't there. It was complete ignoring. Then she suggested looking at something. Let's see if he could still act like that after reading what was inside. Lucian didn't understand what was being discussed or what he had to look at to get out of bed. Sitting down on the bed, he was able to see what she was talking about and was very shocked. On the tray, next to the food, was a white envelope with a red seal on it. The man immediately grabbed it and unfolded it to read, since it had the Duke's seal. Where could she have it from? The girl asked if he would recognize who wrote it, but how could he not recognize that handwriting? He saw this handwriting every day for many years. It said that his cousin wanted to enroll the young Duke of Kaled into the Rosen Academy, and he wouldn't care how much it cost. There was just one condition: to ensure complete safety and privacy. That was all he asked for. Lucian was angry at what he had just read. Unable to contain his emotions, he tore the letter to shreds, clearly wanting to do the same to his cousin. How could he do this to him? Everything in this letter, down to the smallest detail, corresponds to the messages that his brother sent him. There is no doubt that he wrote it. Lady Elsa asked if he now believed her words. After all, his cousin, Baron Craig, had betrayed her, and that should be enough to make Lucian change his mind. The Kaled family is one of the oldest and most honored houses in the Empire, and he, as Lord Lucian, is the rightful heir who must return to House Kaled. She decided to take a spoon from the tray, because now at least everything was known, but he stopped. At this time, Elsa herself began to try the food that she had just brought. The man didn't understand what she was doing, but the lady simply showed him that there was no poison in this food, so what would he do now? Whether he will continue to do nothing or take revenge is entirely up to him. To restore Lucian's desire to fight, the girl chose the most effective option. The young duke quickly considered all the information he had received and came to the conclusion that she was absolutely right. Kaled belongs only to him. His driving force is revenge and only revenge. He wouldn't let anyone take it away from him. The plan worked, just like she planned. After a while, she left his room, leaving him alone with his thoughts. Walking through the corridors, she came up with her next plan of action, and it seems she found a way out. Suddenly the plan came straight to her. A maid was coming out of Victor's room. She immediately asked her where the man was. He was not there, as he had gone to the city. When the maid left, she quietly entered his room for her own purposes. All this time the young duke sat on his bed and thought about everything he had learned. After some time, Victor smashed his entire room in search of something, but it disappeared and was nowhere to be found. He didn't understand where it had gone, because he had definitely left the letter on the table, and this left him completely confused. This letter was the most important piece of evidence that revealed the whole truth about the dormitory. It absolutely had to be returned. But the problem was that if the Marquis found out that he had lost it, he would not be able to avoid severe punishment. Suddenly, he had a brilliant plan, which he began to think about. He, as always, can blame everything on the idiot Elsa. Exactly. She was to blame for everything. Why not do the same? Victor, as usual, will spread rumors among the servants and then report to the Marquis. He will still believe him and not this stupid Elsa. After his brilliant plan, he immediately ran into Elsa's room, bursting into it with a bang. The girl was perplexed by such a visit, suspecting that he would start his threats again. He looked at her with arrogance, thereby showing his disrespect for her, as always. The man came closer and closer to her, starting to accuse her of stealing Baron Craig's letter. But the lady knew that he would come to her, because the important letter entrusted to him by the Marquis was lost, and, as in the original, he was going to accuse Elsa again. The girl asked if he suspected that she had stolen it. Although this time he was right, she took the letter, although he did not know about it. Smiling, she asked if he had proof that she was the rat. That it was Lady Elsa who was able to enter his office and steal the letter. Victor would no longer be able to wipe his feet on her because he couldn't even object to her. Her reaction was very strange. Shouldn't she be begging him not to tell the Marquise? She's been acting strange lately. He thought she was just being proud, especially after Dante rejected her, but something had definitely changed in her behavior. But the man couldn't even look after one letter that was entrusted to him, and now he's trying to blame it all on her. And this whole story with the escape of the special student and his usual behavior, too. He doesn't feel like he's too big of a head. It's all business as usual for him. The girl stood up from her seat, walking behind Victor. From now on, let him control himself and behave decently. After all, he is a commoner. Why did he think he could behave like that? The next day came. The morning was beautiful and sunny. Maybe today something will change. The young Duke was enthusiastically reading some book he had found in his room. Suddenly he heard some voices coming from the corridor. They were two gossiping maids. They were discussing the recent quarrel between Victor and Elsa. They had disagreements, but they had never argued before. It turned out that Victor allegedly said that Elsa had stolen some important letter, which sounded like a serious accusation against her. Hearing this, Lucian realized that they were talking about yesterday. He had long since stopped reading the book. Putting it on the table, he decided to rest a little and think. After all, he was very worried that the girl had gone too far just because of him. If that was the case, she could at least tell him about it. But why she didn't stop him when he tore the letter to shreds, but just stood and watched, this worried him very much. All his thoughts were interrupted by the opening door to the room. He even got a little scared, as it was unexpected. It was Lady Elsa who brought him food with a smile on her face. She was glad that his complexion had finally improved and that he looked a little better overall. The man just looked at her, still thinking about everything. He didn't show any emotions now. It was a good sign, but he still needed to try and recover as quickly as possible. Regular food might be too heavy for him, so she brought soup so that at least he could eat that. The young Duke was tormented by a question that he wanted to ask Elsa, but did not dare. She herself said that she was helping him because she wanted to live. But why did she say that when he didn't even ask a question? He sincerely wanted to know the answer to the question that had been tormenting him all this time. Marquis Oppenheimer is extremely dangerous in every sense, but they say that she will remain in Rosen because she is madly in love with the Marquis. She started to feel some strange feelings. Did Elsa really feel them in the original story? Did she really love Dante so much that even hearing his name made her excited, stupid girl? The Marquis always saw her as a toy. Nothing more, nothing less. He would later fall in love with the heroine from the original story, to the point that he was willing to die for her. But all the previous women were just there to fill his emotional void. Nothing more than a mild curiosity and a source of entertainment. He didn't even care about Elsa's death. Apparently, she was too much affected by the girl's past emotions, but she can overcome them. Once she thought so too, but now everything is completely different. Everything has changed. The girl realized that he did not love her or other women and kept them around only because they were convenient for him. So perhaps it was time to say it. The soft notes in his voice, the trust she had gained from Baron Craig's letter, and the way he treated her not as a villain, but as a human being. With this level of trust, he can take her side, so she decided to confess to him that she wants to escape from this place. The young Duke was surprised by such a confession on her part. But there was one problem. The moment the girl came out, she would most likely be killed as the manager in order to keep all the secrets. That's why she wants to become his ally, but that still wasn't the answer. If she helps him, she is only asking him to protect her from this danger. Of course it was a lie. As soon as she escaped, she would immediately break all ties with the main characters and simply disappear. But if he trusted her even a little, then now he needed to eat. Having warned in advance that she would not be there tomorrow, but he should still eat, even if the lady did not monitor it. The girl wished him a bon appetit, but it was time for her to leave. She started walking towards the exit, but suddenly, something stopped her. As soon as she turned around, Lucian grabbed her by the dress, asking her to wait a little. This action was awkward, and Elsa did not understand what else he wanted. She became a little wary. But the man asked, without letting go of her dress, why she wouldn't be there tomorrow. He looked like a little puppy. The girl didn't understand what was happening to him. She had never seen him like that before. Lady Elsa was stunned by his words because why was he so worried? She waved it off and said that she would leave tomorrow just for a change of scenery, and that's all. But her voice sounded too strained, and the man noticed it. He paid attention to it. She said it was a change of scenery, but in reality, she'll be very busy tomorrow. She needs to dispel Victor's suspicions and play the role of a gorgeous villain because she has to meet the third protagonist, but she can't tell him all this. So, changing the subject, she asked if he needed anything, since she could bring snacks or something else. It was a bit unusual and awkward to hear from her. In her opinion, he didn't look like a child asking for sweets. The lady didn't understand what was wrong with him. Maybe he was sulking because she was going without him. But he himself understood that it was impossible. Well, he's stuck in solitary confinement all day, and she's here talking about a change of scenery. It must be really annoying to him. She only promised that she would try to return as soon as she could, but Lucian didn't care. Let her do what she wanted. It was none of his business. Indeed, who does she feel sorry for, because she is in such a situation that even she herself is not sure whether she will be able to get out alive. Night had fallen and the sky was completely covered with stars, which added extra light to the dark sky. And there was a pile of wet clothes lying on the floor. The man was taking a hot bath, which had always helped him relax in the past. It was Mr. Dante, and his servant came to him again with new news from the academy. It is said that Lady Elsa stole Baron Craig's letter, which was in Victor's possession. The man was unhappy that he was disturbed at such a good moment, and even with such unpleasant news. He realized that they wouldn't let him rest, so he began to slowly get out of the bath. It turned out that Victor personally scolded Elsa, and there was a small commotion in the boarding school. The Marquis put on clean clothes that his subordinate gave him. Partly he did not believe that Victor himself scolded Elsa, and was clearly unhappy about it. But it was true that this is what actually happened. The servants were a little afraid of such a reaction from the Marquis, because he could do anything. The Marquis walked over to the table where he was calmly pouring himself an alcoholic drink into a glass. He was angry that this man dared to scold his mistress. Dante hates most those who don't know their place. Perhaps he is angry now, not because of concern for Elsa, but because of the thought that Victor challenged the Marquis's authority. Moreover, Craig's letter is an extremely important thing that can reveal the true nature of the hostel. Victor was entrusted with this letter not because he is a reliable subordinate, but to lure him into a trap. This rat is snooping around collecting dirt. He was trying to figure out where he was taking it and was planning on taking it all down in one go, but he has no idea what he's doing. Dante ordered not to touch him, because as soon as he was done with this, he himself would tear him to pieces. The ward understood what the Marquis meant and fell silent. The next day, the maid reported to the man that Lady Elsa had left. She said she was going to Taylor's boutique. After all, when she was choosing her outfit, she complained that she was tired of all her clothes and threw them all away at that moment. She was clearly not in the best mood. The other day she called a jeweler, and today clothes. Victor thought so. She had always been a materialistic and empty-headed woman, so it would not be easy for her to change so quickly. Suddenly the maid interrupted his thoughts, holding out a letter. It was from the Marquis. He was tense and terrified, because this could only mean one thing. Quickly throwing gold coins into the servant's hands, he praised her and told her to continue reporting all movements to Elsa, dismissing her. The girl happily left Victor's office, having received her payment. Now it was possible to see the contents of the letter. Since he reported that Elsa had stolen the letter, perhaps he would ask to get rid of her. But this was not at all what he expected to see, and it left the man in shock. His whole body was shaking, apparently from anger, while he read the contents of the letter. It said that she had always been like this and didn't see anything new. He should remind her to be more careful next time. He was angry, crumpling the letter in his hand because she was getting away with it again. Too much time had already been lost. If he didn't get her out of the way, he wouldn't have access to the book that revealed all the secrets of the academy. But what should he do now, having calmed down? He began to come up with a new plan to get rid of the girl. The answer was right in front of him. No matter how much Elsa liked the Marquis, even she wouldn't be able to get out of the case of attacking a student. At this time, the lady was in the city to buy herself new clothes and meet the third main character. The city looked like any other city. There was deathly silence on the streets. There was not a single living soul on the streets, even in the morning. The girl was a little nervous before the meeting, so she held the handle of the front door for a long time. But there was nowhere to go. She entered the building because it was time to start. As soon as she entered, she was welcomed into the Famier house. The servant who was bringing various treats decided to find out how he could help her. Showing herself from her best and kindest side, she wanted to order a cherry pie. But unfortunately, it is out of stock, so if she orders it with whipped cream, will they be able to make it for her? On the one hand, it may seem like this is a completely pointless conversation, but it is not at all so. There was a point. But then again, mentioning whipped cream on cherry pie is a secret password. The servant immediately led her into an unknown room. When he came into the room, the man began to apologize for the fact that it was not cleaned, because it was his personal office. When the girl sat down on the sofa, he asked what ultimately brought her to this place. But before she speaks, shouldn't mutual trust be the basis for a smooth conversation? The servant did not fully understand what she meant by these words, but still acted as expected. That servant turned out to be Count Lüneburg, who was only hiding behind the guise of an ordinary ward. That was the reason why this place was so special. Realizing that its disguise had been revealed, there was no point in hiding anymore. This place is home to the Empire's top trade lord and the third main character of this world. By removing his ring, he became the head of the Schmeichel Trading Company. Benedict Lüneburg was an incredible inventor who founded the Schmeichel Company, and having taken control of the distribution of the empire, he elevated the poor Lüneburg family to the upper echelons of the empire. Using the information he obtained through the company, he also manages this place, the Famir House. The ring he had just taken off contained a magic stone. This magical relic from ancient times is not only extremely rare, but also cannot be active without magical powers. Only someone on the level of the main characters of this world can use it, so it's definitely Benedict. She had already gained some trust from Lucian. Now it was his turn to do the same. The girl has to win his favor by any means necessary, so it won't be as interesting if she tells him. This answer from Elsa was able to interest him. But if he lets her get the information, then she can tell him. Of course, she would pay a good price for what she got from him, but unfortunately, his guild did not participate in one-sided information trading. It was a pity that she had come such a long way in vain, but Elsa expected that it would be difficult with him. If the direct approach didn't work, maybe she should use the original story. So she decided to make a very interesting bet. She knew that he was planning to invest in the western territory of Romdio. The man was shocked. How did she find out about this? Benedict, also known as the Golden Hand, suffered the only failure. The conflict between the half-siblings of Romdio, the first daughter and current ruler, Lady Romdio, and the 10-year-old young Lord Romdio, supported by his supporters. In the original, Benedict took advantage of the political turmoil caused by their conflict for the throne. He invested in the young Mr. Romdio, but Lady Romdio won outright, and he was unable to recoup his investment. It's top secret, so he's apparently surprised that she knows, asking if he believes the young master will win, hinting that she felt like the banner of victory was waving in Lady Romdio's direction. How could this woman know about this? Because it was a secret operation. Thoughts about this did not give her peace. Perhaps she heard something from the Marquis, but even if so, what was the point of this whole conversation? Would she really give up such important information in exchange for another? And if she is telling the truth, then it will save him from great losses. How much did she really know? He decided to find out if she thought he was better off investing in Lady Romdio. But she said no because he apparently misunderstood her words. Lüneburg was shocked by this answer because this was not what he expected at all. Even so, the young master's maternal family was powerful and strong in authority. For the smooth operation of the Schmeichel Guild, relationships with the nobility of each territory are important. The girl's words were logical on the one hand, and it would mean only one thing. That it is better not to interfere in the struggle for the throne at all is not the best idea. Although there was logic in this, but what if Lady Romdio did not win, as she said? What would she do then? If he lost the expected profit from Romdio, then Elsa would compensate him for the entire amount. These words came as a shocking blow. He wondered if she had any idea how much he had invested, knowing she hardly had the funds to cover such losses. The lady admitted that she really didn't have that amount, but she had one trump card. It was secret information at the moment. Her fiancé had so much money. If she had lost so much, the Marquis would certainly have rejected her. But the fact that she is willing to do this shows how serious she is about the stakes. The man then became curious about what information she so desperately wanted to obtain that she was willing to go so far. There is one person in the Rosenkreuz boarding school named Victor. The girl wants to know about his black market activities in as much detail as possible and faster than anyone else. Mr. Lüneburg remembered the information she asked for, but the question remained open whether he agreed to the deal, and the answer was yes. She had achieved her goal, so it was time to go, thanking him for such a meaningful conversation. A man stopped her and said that she had ordered cherry pie, so she should take it with her. Although he said that it was not available, for ordinary visitors it was. This meant that she was now considered a valuable client worth investing in, but first she would need to win the bet. In response to his phrase, Elsa only laughed and then frowned a little. After all, she doesn't make bets that she will lose, and in the world she lives in, there is no next time if she loses. The gentleman did not quite understand the meaning of her words, asking how to understand this. But this phrase meant only one thing: she could die at any moment from her choice. Having finished this terrible and at the same time sad conversation, she decided to leave. But before that, having said that the cherry pie she ordered, the lady hopes to receive along with the requested information. The man was increasingly amazed by her actions and words, but tried not to show it. Lady Lefarian, when the mother of the family died under pressure from her father and mistress, she was almost sold to the old count. But by a lucky chance she managed to take the place of the mistress of Marquis Oppenheimer. He thought of her as an evil woman, notorious for her arrogant and impudent actions. But this woman before him had exceptional judgment and a sharp mind. Perhaps he simply missed something in her. Thoughts about it did not give him peace. They were interrupted by a servant whom the man had called. He was already standing on the threshold and waiting for what he would be entrusted with this time. A request was received this time. He should take a closer look at her and then report everything accurately. Walking along the busy streets of the city, the girl realized that it seemed that the deal with Benedict had been successful. Now she had to return to the academy and check on Lucian. As she approached the fountain, she realized that the order to the coachman to stay with him had not been carried out. But where could he be? Walking the streets in search of him, the girl saw something interesting in the window of the building. In a small establishment, a boy happily bought himself a brightly colored ice cream. Even in this world, places not related to the main plot remain calm. She wondered if she would ever be able to live happily and carefree. She often thought about it, because now was not the best and not the happiest time in her life. The boy ran out into the street to show off and come back. He was running down the street and was so happy he didn't look around, so he accidentally crashed into a lady. As a result, his ice cream got on the girl's dress and stained it. The girl was worried if the boy was okay, because he became very worried about what happened, but everything was fine with him. But he felt sorry because his ice cream had stained the lady's expensive dress. He really didn't want that to happen. Elsa didn't scold or get angry. She just reassured the boy that everything was fine. She saw his reaction. She crouched down a little to be level with the young man. Taking out a gold coin, the girl handed it over. Because it seemed he liked the ice cream and it was such a pity to lose it, there was a shop nearby so he could buy another one. The young man was very happy because her kindness was wonderful. He even smiled a little and became calmer. And her smile was like an angel's. Such a confession embarrassed the girl. Touching her lips, she couldn't believe that she could smile too. Come to think of it, this was the first time she had smiled like that since she became Elsa. If she ever escaped Rosen, maybe opening a cafe wouldn't be such a bad idea. And if she lives the way she dreams, maybe one day she too can be part of a happy life. At least she wanted to think so. No longer trembling with fear, but just living peacefully, her thoughts were interrupted by someone calling her loudly. It turned out to be the coachman, who was in a great hurry to get to her, but what could have happened that he addressed her so abruptly? It turns out there was a problem with a special student with the young Duke Lucian. I had to go to him immediately to sort everything out, because it was still dangerous. Now was really no time to be in the clouds for someone like her, whose fate was a miserable death. There was no time to feel sorry for herself. It was night, the sky was a fabulous purple. The man was on some terrace. Everything looked like a fairy tale. He had never seen this place before. The young Duke noticed something strange behind him. Now he was frightened by everything that was not as usual. Lady Elsa came to him, which was very surprising. The lady was dressed in some kind of white, almost transparent nightdress. She had been waiting for him for so long. She slowly extended her hand towards him, wanting to say something. Elsa hugged him around the neck and was very close to his face, saying that she wanted to be by his side forever. Lucian was very confused by the girl's behavior, but most importantly, he did not understand what she was doing. But turning his head towards her, the lady tenderly kissed the man on the lips, showing her love for him. Pulling away from him, the girl asked if he could accept her feelings for him. But what was going on? Didn't she say that young men weren't her type? But for some reason, it felt so good all this time. Elsa was trying to shout to him, but she couldn't do it. All this time, Lucian lay unconscious on the floor. They had been trying to wake him up for a long time. But it was all in vain. The man was in a deep sleep and it felt like he had a fever. The lady decided to check all the symptoms to verify her guess. Her guess was correct, and someone dared to introduce Nyx to him. How dare they do this to a special student without her permission? Nyx was a drug named after the goddess of night that, when administered, caused a lethargic sleep, which is why Dante often used it for torture. A small dose was enough to break a person, but if you add a little more, it can lead to hallucinations, a constant feeling of pain, or even death. If the antidote is not administered quickly, it will only get worse. One of the servants began to shout at Elsa that the patient was resisting too much, so they could not administer the antidote to him. But Lucian could die, so the lady decided to take matters into her own hands and not rely on anyone. Taking the bottle with the antidote, she immediately poured it into his mouth. She tried with all her might to save him. To force it into the young duke's mouth with his own help was the only way to make him accept it. Having poured all the antidote into his mouth, she stood up, still holding the bottle in her hands. Now they had to say who committed this crime. Everyone bowed their heads, not wanting to admit who it really was. And since everyone was silent, the girl had no choice but to charge everyone with attacking the nobleman, and they would be executed. Fearing their death, the subordinates trembled in fear, and one of them decided to confess that it was Mr. Victor. The servant saw the man go to the special student, and he said that he would personally bring him food. Having heard everything she wanted, the girl ordered everyone to leave, apparently. She had greatly underestimated Victor. In the original story, no one touched Lucian, the young duke. Only the villain Elsa treated him like a toy, so she thought that as long as she wasn't like that, everything would be fine. But apparently it happened because she was kind to Lucian. Whatever the reason, it was now clear it was time to get rid of Victor. Morning came. The sun was shining brightly outside, illuminating every branch. The young duke had just gotten up. For some reason, he had a severe headache, apparently because of yesterday. Yesterday, he was also lying in his bed when suddenly a crowd burst in on him. There were so many of them that they completely immobilized him, ordering him to remain silent. The last thing he remembered was Victor saying that Lucian was just Lady Elsa's toy. Suddenly, he started pouring some strange liquid into his mouth. Apparently, it was Nyx. And after he made him drink it, he had a dream where he was with a girl. Remembering how they kissed in their sleep, he blushed completely, lightly touching his lips. It was a hallucination because of that drug, but why did he see it that way? His thoughts were interrupted by a light knock on the door. An elegant female leg appeared on the threshold. It was Lady Elsa, who was very worried about the man. If something was bothering him, he would definitely have to tell her. Lucian was still all red, and it was bad for him that she came just now. The girl brought him breakfast, telling him that they managed to administer the antidote as quickly as possible, but Nyx had serious side effects. The man was horrified, because only now he learned that he was given Nyx, which is why he saw such hallucinations and almost died. He watched the lady closely, because it turned out that she had saved him again. Even during the escape incident, when he was ready to die, she protected him. She also pulled him out of despair with the words that the man was the rightful heir of this house, and therefore should reclaim the Duchy of Khalid. And even those words then, they were sincere, just like her tears. She's already saved him twice, he should at least thank her. After thanking her, Elsa reminded him that he was her partner in escaping from the academy, in case he didn't remember. Her words seemed to calm Lucian down. True, they were in the same boat sailing to freedom. Now he knows that escaping from here alone is almost impossible, but with the help of Elsa, the manager, there may be a chance. If they manage to escape, they will show this terrible place to the whole world. And when a man takes back his power, he will be the one who protects her. Only later did he realize what he was craving. These thoughts were unusual for him. Elsa and he are together. The two of them can get out of the boarding school at any cost. As a partner, Lady Leferian will cooperate with him, Lucian said with joy in his eyes. Lady Leferina, she hadn't heard that for a long time. No one at the academy called her that. It was strange and unexpected. But it was even pleasant. She immediately broke into a smile from his words and became a little embarrassed. This meant that the man really began to trust her, not like before. After leaving the young gentleman's room, she happily walked along the corridors of the boarding school. The words the man had said to her were stuck in her head. She couldn't stop playing them over and over in her head. Elsa, the rejected daughter of the Viscount House of Leferian, Elsa is nothing more than Dante's pathetic lover. In this world, no one ever addressed her by her last name, as if she were some nameless commoner. It was clearly a form of mockery towards her. But now, she didn't care about all that they said about her. She was completely immersed in her thoughts. Because once she's freed from the original plot, none of that matters anymore. The Rosenkreuz dormitory looked like a divine place, filled with flower beds and a fountain in the center. In this place, students who behave well are rewarded with a small tea party. They were served a strawberry-filled cake on a pretty pink plate. But not everyone sees this as a reward, as Bridget Martin was brought a ruined cake. She was the emotional trash can of Rosen Academy. Since the dorm was essentially a cage for noble students, the idea of rank had to be broken down, and they had to be taught to be reconciled. A woman from a fallen house, abandoned by her husband and sent here, became easy prey for Victor. Bridget's existence provided relief to the other students who weren't targeted. Her pseudo-friends encouraged her to eat the spoiled cake at tea parties, asking her to try it. The girl could not say anything to them in response, so she agreed and humiliated herself. And for the servants, he allowed them to mock her and feel superior, and so, Rosen bought the peace of mind of the valuable Bridget. In the original story, Elsa didn't pay even a little attention to her, but she can't forget about this poor girl, so she came to her tea party. The lady will get her on her side by any means necessary, since Bridget was also important to the original story. She was the scapegoat in Rosen for a very long time and no one wanted to stop it. And even after leaving the dorm, she still couldn't live a normal life, seeing their faces every day. That's when the heroine of the original story first turned to her. She calmed the girl down, pointing out that everything that was done to her was not her fault and only hers. She will save her, and in return, Bridget will help the heroine escape from the main characters because she wanted to somehow repay her for saving her. If Lady Elsa takes the place of the main character, then she will become the one to whom she will repay for saving her because she will destroy this tea party performance. All the ladies and even the maids were surprised by her appearance because she had never come to them before. The lady thought she would finally join the tea party for once, but no one seemed happy to see her. And yet, she still had the feeling that the Countess would accept her. So she stayed and asked if she could sit next to them. The question sounded a little anxious. Although everyone was not against it, the atmosphere in the air was tense. Elsa suddenly noticed that the Countess's cup was empty when everyone else's were full, and offered to pour her some tea herself. The girl wanted to stop her, but it was too late. The tea was pouring into the mug. When it was completely filled, the lady saw something strange in it that should not have been there. All the tea was mixed with some kind of dirt. They did not let her drink even one simple cup. This abuse had already gone beyond what was permitted. She immediately threw the kettle on the floor in a rage, thereby breaking it into several pieces. The fragments flew in different directions, and it even seemed that they could hurt someone. Shouting out what kind of swamp water they were given, the maid apologized guiltily, saying that some mistake had occurred and said that she did not want it. Now that she thought about it, this maid was extremely suspicious and worth keeping an eye on. The girl saw her wandering into Victor's office, and it was clearly not just like that. Perhaps she was one of his spies. Elsa wanted to make her pay for what happened to Lucian recently. But enough of holding back, because, reminding her of what had happened, she asked if this was how she was apologizing. The subordinate was perplexed by such words, but if she does it, then let her do it right. Stepping on her hand with her foot, she ordered her to kneel. With arrogance in her voice, she said that she would also kiss his feet for everything. And she will start with Lady Martin, who was sitting at the table and did not understand what was happening. Trembling with fear, the maid gathered her strength to apologize to everyone. But then a man came out of nowhere, stopping this humiliation. He interrupted this whole discussion with his menacing tone. It turned out to be Victor, who was interested in the question of what brought her to tea today. The man finally showed up here, running right away as soon as she started to harass his little spy. It was so shameless, and this was after what he did with the special student. After such an interesting arrival, Elsa removed her leg from the maid's hand, because it seems like he was implying that she shouldn't have been here. Of course it wasn't like that. He tried to frame her by using nix on a special student to kill him, but she came back early that day and ruined the whole plan. And now, out of the blue, she showed up at a tea party that she had never been to. That's what he was thinking. He couldn't kill Lucian and pin it on the lady like he planned, so why is he so pouty now? The girl, with a smile on her face, explained to the man that she simply wanted to change her environment. She tried to behave carefully and respectfully, but what a horror! Instead of a refreshing drink, she took the mug in her hands, obviously in order to drink from it. Lady Elsa spilled the entire contents of the mug right onto Victor's white clothes, doing it out of spite. They served her such disgusting water, she pretended to be innocent as if nothing had happened. The man immediately started shouting at her, trying to do something with his clothes. But didn't he like it? It was perfect for someone at his level. But not for her, the girl said with some mockery. Watching quietly from the side, the woman clearly did not understand who she had decided to contact. After such words, he didn't know what to do now, because if he started a quarrel, it would show him in the worst light. Countess Martin, watching this whole scene, felt awkward because it was because of her that all this started. Her thoughts were interrupted by Lady Elsa, who asked for attention. The girl asked if she always ate such leftovers as she did today, or if this was an exception. The Countess did not understand why she had suddenly become like this, because before this she had not cared about her. She was locked in a room, and even when she begged to be let out, she couldn't live like that. No one cared about her. The Countess lived with spiders and rats, gradually going crazy. So, obeying every request and order, she hoped that this could be her last chance to escape from this hell. The girl confessed to Elsa that this was how it was, and that she was fed scraps every time. By saying the phrase "everything is like that," she meant that this was not the first time she had been addressed in this way. Having demanded an explanation from Victor, he could only squeeze out that she did not need to worry about such trifles. Well, whether it's a small thing or not, I think Marquis Oppenheimer will decide this issue. Maybe instead of Elsa, he will worry about himself, because rumors have already spread that he has recently had serious troubles. Didn't he lose the letter that the Marquis himself entrusted to him? And he knows very well that treason against the nobility was considered a serious crime. She can, of course, forget about his rudeness towards the girl. But isn't it better to be more careful in your actions? Victor should not forget that he is just a commoner. She showed with her whole appearance his rightful place. The man was already shaking with anger, which he felt from such humiliation, where he could not even say a word. Having finished with him, Lady Elsa invited Lady Martin to come inside with her. As the manager, she would like to apologize for this situation and offer normal tea and cake. It sounded very cool, and finally the lady noticed something. She looked at the maid she had recently mocked by saying that her dress was dirty and she needed to change, hinting that she should go with them. The three of them left the scene of the unsuccessful tea party. After some time, they finally reached the right room. Lady Bridget sat on the soft sofa, waiting to see what would happen next. For her, being in such a place was quite awkward and unusual, after being bullied for a long time. Elsa asked her to wait a little in this room until she cleaned up and came back, to which she obediently agreed. The girl did not understand what was happening, because this evil woman, as they say about her, really helped her. It was strange and unexpected. She sat quietly on the sofa and remembered what she had to go through. Her ex-husband insulted her, calling her a log, and then left for another woman. The maids discussed how they should not treat her well, because in any case, she had already been abandoned by her family, and she called herself a noblewoman. And yet, this was the first time that anyone stood up for her. It could even be called a rather pleasant feeling. Someone who cared about her, instead of just standing there and watching, actually stood up for her. At this time, Elsa had almost changed into a new dress in her room and was getting ready to go out. The maid who came at the lady's request to change her clothes felt awkward and a little constrained. Suddenly a girl approached her, which worried her greatly. She said that the Marquis hated it when his power was questioned. Regardless of status, even if it is a humble maid, if you make a mistake, he will punish everyone severely, mercilessly, and very cruelly. From these words, the maid shook in fear, because why was she saying these words to her? The lady knew that she was Victor's spy, who reported everything to him. She really thought she could betray her and get away unscathed. After these words, the maid immediately fell to her knees before her, pitifully begging for mercy. She was ready to give all the money she received from Victor, even stop being a maid and also lick her shoes. As she wanted, she was ready to do anything, but only so that she would not tell the Marquis. But what to do with her, because the girl didn't need any of this, but she has only one way to survive. She had to keep her deal with Benedict a secret from Dante. Sitting down on the floor next to her, she offered to help her leave Rosenkreuz Academy on foot. But how could she do such a thing after everything that was found out about her? It's simply unacceptable. There was only one solution. She had to become a double agent. It would be her only option to survive. Elsa had to use this maid as an alibi. The maid had to report to her every evening from now on, but if there was something urgent, then at any time. And also, there was another condition, the same cold attitude towards Lady Martin. It must never happen again, because if she finds out about it, the worst consequences await her. The maid understood everything perfectly, and will do everything to save her life. All this time, the Countess was waiting for them, hovering somewhere in the clouds, waiting for Elsa to come. After a while, the door to the room opened. She immediately reacted to this, turning to see this person. Lady Lefarian entered the room, followed quietly behind her with her head down, carrying a tea set. She was worried that Lady Martin might be waiting for her, since they had been in the other room for quite some time. The lady sat down opposite the girl, while the maid poured tea for both of them and began to stare intently. She served chamomile tea and strawberry cake, which would help them relax after everything, or at least she really hoped so. She also sincerely asked for forgiveness for the poor preparation for that tea party, promising that such a situation would not happen again. After listening to her apologies, she let her go about her business. She never received an apology from the maid, and she doesn't remember the last time she saw such a luxurious tea set. Lady Elsa apparently arranged this just for her, but why would she need someone like her? With some fear, the Countess held the mug of chamomile tea in her hands, because this was unusual for her. The atmosphere was increasingly putting pressure on her, so she couldn't bear it any longer and decided to find out everything directly. Although she was grateful for the help, she was tormented by one question. What is it that she wants from her, after all? All this was arranged for a reason. Bridget had one idea, but since she is grateful to her, she wants to help in any way she can. This question left Elsa a little stumped, because to be honest, she hadn't defended her for nothing, and in order to use her, because she helped the heroine in the original. But she still couldn't get used to the idea of helping people because they would be useful to her. It was just disgusting. Even so, if she wants to survive, she needs to do whatever it takes, even if it means deceiving others. So the girl lied and said that she actually wanted to be friends with her. This was shocking for the Countess, because she expected anything but such a proposal. Lady Elsa explained this by saying that they were very similar, although it was not visible. But in reality, she always felt lonely in Rosen, just like her. That's why she wants to be her friend. People in similar situations understand each other's pain best. Here at the boarding school, they are the ones who are not truly accepted and never will be accepted. Such are the rules of this place. After a slight hesitation, the Countess decided to find out whether she needed to give an answer right away. It wasn't necessary because friendship can't be forced on someone, and now she just hopes that she can enjoy a real tea party. Still, tea is best drunk warm. Such sincere words touched the girl's heart. She couldn't even imagine that everything would turn out so abruptly in her life. Without waiting, she immediately decided to take a sip of chamomile tea, which was not like that swamp water. It was very tasty, such good tea, the lady hadn't drunk it for a long time. After this conversation, several days and several nights passed, during which much reflection took place. They were in some kind of garden where many different beautiful flowers were planted. They were really very unusual. At this time, Lady Elsa was approaching the appointed meeting place with her new friend. After that, she began to have tea parties with Bridget more often. She enjoyed this kind of pastime. As her distrust gradually weakened, seeing her expression become happier every day, she too felt a strange sense of relief. They were drinking tea together again from new luxurious mugs. It was wonderful. And if you think about it, several months have already passed since her arrival at the academy. And she was wondering if there was any news about her family, letters or anything like that, she was wondering, but no one had reported it yet. If she asks the lady about something like that, it means that she opened up to her a little, which was very good. It turned out that the Countess still missed one person. She must have been talking about her son. The Count did not divorce Bridget, even though she was from a modest family, and he sent her to this boarding school because she gave birth to the family's legitimate heir. Lady Elsa will see what can be done about it, so she shouldn't worry too much. They would surely be able to see each other soon, and it was not a lie to gain her trust. Because according to the original story, Count Martin and his heir will die in an accident on the same day. And for the sake of her son, who will inherit the title of Earl at such a young age, Bridge will eventually leave this academy. The girl really hoped for this, also apologizing for not believing her all this time. She had no idea that she was such a soft person. At that moment, sadness and guilt appeared in her, only she had to apologize for her late actions. Swallowing her bad intentions, repeating the same words that the heroine told her in the original to calm the Countess down today. While they were talking about everything, a maid approached them with an unknown box in her hands. It was a box of cherry pie that she had managed to order when she left for the city. This cherry pie could only mean one thing. Benedict was finally able to track down Victor and find out things about him that were interesting to the lady. The girl waited a very long time to receive the information she needed. All the information was in the box, which no one knew except her and Benedict. It was time to get rid of Victor. Having finished her tea, she immediately went to her office to find out what he had managed to find out. Her target was disguised as a milk merchant, and once a month at dawn, he met with a man. The next such meeting took place this Thursday at dawn. They had agreed on this in advance. And since the information was from Benedict himself, then it was definitely reliable and verified. As soon as she finished reading the letter, there was a knock on her door, wanting to come in. Without waiting for an answer, the maid entered the room, but not just like that, she had a report for her. She was just in time because Elsa had just finished reading and she didn't disturb her. She had one interesting case for her. It was time to create evidence. At this time, Victor greedily devoured glasses of alcoholic beverages without even stopping to eat anything. He was furious and desperate at the same time, because first there was Baron Craig's letter, and now he had even failed the case of the poisoning of the student. But the meeting was soon to take place, so he had to get the results he needed. He couldn't just sit there and do nothing if Rosen's secret book was in his possession, a book that records all the nobles studying at Rosenkreuz. It records all the income disguised as donations. With this he will be able to reveal the truth about Rosen and completely destroy Dante. Then Elsa would fall with him, and it wouldn't even touch him. Suddenly his thoughts were interrupted by a female voice that wanted to enter Victor's. A maid who had just been to Elsa came to see him, but he doesn't know about it. She had important news for him. She found out the location of the secret book. This information could not but please him. He finally had the opportunity he had been waiting for so long. Although he didn't know, a trap was set for him. Starting today, Thursday, at about this time, he should leave for a meeting. There was a knock on her door again. The lady allowed entry, but she did not know who was there, so she began to watch the door. It was the maid with another report Mr. Victor had just left Rosen. Such news, of course, made the woman happy, and she couldn't hold back her smile. Everything had been ready for a long time. It was time to catch the little rat. It would be better for her to get ready to go out. There was not a single soul in the night city, and there were still stars in the sky. All that could be heard was the approaching hoofbeats of a horse. Victor rode on horseback to the meeting place with the stranger, as they had agreed. The man hoped that this time he had achieved the desired results and received something. The answer was yes, he was able to find out the information. This time he brought hard evidence, handing him Rosen's secret book. With this book, they will definitely be able to destroy Rosen and Marquis forever, especially Elsa. Before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by a girl who appeared out of nowhere. Victor knew this voice very well and could not confuse it. It was Lady Elsa, who arrived with the guards just in time. Victor was frightened by the fact that she somehow ended up in this place, and clearly not by accident. Without answering him, she simply ordered the guards to take him away and turned away. He put up a bit of a fight, but was soon locked in the Academy's underground prison as ordered. Finally, she was able to deal with Victor, and now she could rest a little and calm down. He couldn't even imagine that she would appear. That expression on her face was definitely worth it. Now it was time to tell Dante about everything that had happened. Opening her desk drawer, the girl discovered a large amount of prepared writing paper. What she saw shocked the new Elsa. She even lost the power of speech. Carefully dried rose petals were pressed onto the paper to infuse it with scent. Seals beautifully decorated with flowers. Elsa used this paper only for Dante. Even in such a small detail, one could feel the girl's strong love for the man. How much did she love him that a simple piece of paper could make even her faint? However, all her life she desired love that was not mutual, only for it to be taken away by the heroine. What did she feel then? But it didn't concern her now. She was just interested, not that much, but enough for her purposes. She wrote a letter saying that she had managed to catch Victor in collusion, ordering the maid to deliver it to the Marquis. Taking it, she immediately went to send it. Once she was out the door, all that was left was to wait for him to receive it. Now that she had sent it, she would finally be able to see the man's smug face. To be honest, she would have preferred not to see it, but it was still interesting. All that was left was to wait for the Marquis to respond. At night, Mr. Dante received a letter from Lady Elsa. He clearly expected to see another love letter from her, so he read it without any interest. But after reading it completely, he was so interested in it that even the smile on his face couldn't be hidden. Putting it aside, he stood up from his desk. He turned to his ward, Rian, wanting to say something. They had to go to boarding school immediately. Without explaining anything, early the next morning they left in a cart. The cart was going too slowly, but that was all the speed it could go. Dante was clearly unhappy that they had not left that day and had to wait until the morning and move so slowly. But they were already driving at full speed and he still had to finish all his business before leaving. Such a sudden departure to Rosen. Something was wrong. Maybe the letter to Elsa was not one of her love notes. Deciding not to drown in guesses, he decided to ask why they were going to Rosen so quickly. Something had clearly happened at the academy. It turned out that Elsa managed to catch Victor. That's right, it seems like the girl can do anything when she really wants it. It was getting more and more interesting. He smiles like that, only then someone will definitely die. This meant that when they arrived, he would go to Lady Elsa first. This conclusion was wrong, because why did his sweet lady catch Victor for him? It was obvious that he would crush him first. At this time at the academy, the girl had all her skincare products on her desk. She was preening herself in front of the mirror, tidying herself up because she had barely slept, catching Victor, and now she felt terrible. But she still had to check on Lucian since it had been a long time. The lady wore her soft pink heels. High, bright heels, Elsa liked to wear them. But for her, they are like shackles, constantly squeezing her legs. As if to say, you can never escape the fate of the villain. That's how it felt. They were painfully uncomfortable to walk in, but there was no other choice. At this time, the young Duke had already gotten up and was thinking about how he could entertain himself. Suddenly, he heard someone entering the room, turning their head towards the door. It was Lady Lothario who brought him breakfast. Lucian noticed that she looked a little haggard today, which worried him. He was attentive as always last night. She was busy getting Victor to sit down. The man remembered how he had forced him to drink Nyx, which had made his expression more serious. The girl told him that he had been secretly communicating with a suspicious person. As for the details, she was sure that Marcus Oppenheimer would interrogate him properly. This meant that he was returning to the academy, but he didn't have to worry about that. He has a lot to do and is quite freedom-loving, so he won't stay long. She really hopes so. If Dante is around, it will complicate any escape plans. After this not very happy news, Lucian lost his desire to eat, his mood completely disappeared, and his head went dark. He would still have to be careful while he was here, he knew that very well. Trying to please him somehow, Lady Elsa suggested that they go for a walk. She sent the letter at dawn, so Dante won't be coming to the academy until at least tomorrow. While Lucian is here, he must stay in this room. It was better to let him walk while he could, although there was one problem. In order to leave the room, he had to put on shackles. Such were the rules. But the man himself wanted her to put them on him, because he doesn't want her to get into trouble again because of him. By the time they were getting ready, it was already deep night. They walked through the academy park, where roses were planted and there was a fountain. At some point, communicating with Lucian began to calm her heart. It was strange. This was the man who would one day kill her. The man walked happily, feeling free. He walked up to the rose bush, dropped to one knee, and looked at them. These flowers were truly beautiful. At that moment, a genuine smile appeared on his face, something she had never seen before. While she complains about heels that feel like shackles, she put real shackles on such an innocent young guy. She was bothered by his shackles, which clearly bothered him, but he didn't show it. But nothing could be done, too many eyes were watching. And the rose he found, its color is exactly the same as my lady's hair. Just look at them, they are indistinguishable, sweet as sugar, something the original villain couldn't hear. The worry immediately left her heart. She smiled as she never did before. Her new look suited her. Lucian couldn't stop admiring her beauty and smile, and even wanted to share his impressions with her. Such a romantic moment was ruined by a man who saw them enjoying the moment. This voice was eerily familiar to Lady Elsa, so she turned towards the voice. There stood a man, waiting for her to notice him, glaring at them sternly. Didn't she miss him? Dante asked with a smirk, looking at the sweet couple. Seeing that the lady had finally paid attention to him, he immediately grabbed her by the waist and pulled her towards him. Pulling her towards him, he kissed her roughly on the lips before she could even say a word. He had no intention of letting her go, even when she asked him to. This behavior was too unconventional, because before he saw her only as a thing. Finally calming down, Dante let the girl go, greeting her as he should have originally. They hadn't seen each other for so long, but why had he already arrived? It hadn't even been a day since she sent the letter. All this time, Lucian was watching this whole situation and was surprised, because in front of him was Marquis Dante de Savi Oppenheimer himself. The man twisted Lady Elsa around his fingers, knowing that she would not say a word to him. The young Duke did not like this at all, and he began to get angry, but he tried not to show his emotions. He seemed to have had a lot of fun with the girl, although he had a lot of questions about what he was doing. But first he took the flower out of Elsa's hair, crushing it sharply with his foot. Dante should have gotten rid of such a small nuisance, he said arrogantly. After this, the guards who were standing nearby and waiting for the order grabbed Lucian. They had him completely under control and were ready to take the special student back to the room. On orders to take this man away, the guards dragged the young duke to his room as ordered. He resisted because he didn't want to leave and shouted to be let go. As if humiliated, he walked slowly. The guards let him go so as not to drag him themselves. Even though they constantly urged him on, it was Master Dante's order, and they could not disobey. In such a situation, Elsa should not have felt guilty towards the man. But maybe it's because she's been spending so much time with him lately. The girl felt terrible when she saw Lucian being treated like that. The Marquis didn't give the guy much thought, so he held out his hand, inviting her to walk hand in hand with him into their shared room. Lady Elsa was perplexed by this action. Something was clearly wrong with Dante. After all, he never offered to accompany her. Although she doesn't know the reason why he does this, she clearly needs to be more careful. Among the three main characters obsessed with the heroine, he is the most dangerous and unpredictable. There was Mr. Dante because no one knew what his mood would be and what he would do next. After a while of silence down the corridor, they came to their room. And now the man would like to know what happened in the garden between her and the special student. Why was she out on the street at such an hour with the young Duke Khaled? This nice walk was also part of her special management. The Marquis said this with mockery. The girl didn't know what caused this sudden mood swing, but he was fickle by nature. The moment he loses interest, he can get rid of her just like the others. If she wants to survive and escape, she must protect her status in this academy. To get out of this situation, the lady had to maintain Dante's interest in her, which is what she tried to do. In that case, it's true, Duke Khaled is a very important student. It's certainly a valuable source of income, and if he escapes and exposes their academy, his very existence could be in danger. Even worse, other former students may also rebel and follow him. So far, Dante's power has kept everything under control, but Lucian can match his influence. That is why she tried to maintain good relations with him and met him intentionally, and as a result, the young Duke trusts her. It was as if Elsa was a kind of older sister to him. The man was pleased with her efforts and such a report. This is what he was trying to achieve. That was fine. He could accept that. But there was one last question. How did she know about Victor's suspicious activity? She couldn't find out about this word, so someone obviously warned her, and it was better for her to tell the truth. Lying will only backfire if he finds out. It's better to just confess to avoid more problems. With a joyful smile on her face, the girl admitted that she had been watching and observing him all this time. This answer surprised the Marquis a little. It was clearly not what he wanted to hear. But Elsa only pretended to be an innocent girl and said that Victor behaved disrespectfully towards her, the Marquis's lover, and she didn't like it, so she wanted to find something to use against him. She could not have expected that he would conspire with other people. Now the man understood what had happened, believing the lady's words. A man who dares to act badly towards his woman must die, at least within the walls of the academy. It seems that the bet on Dante's authority paid off well. I think he doesn't suspect her now. Now she had to leave as quickly as possible before the man changed his mind. Before she could say a word, Lady Elsa was pressed against the wall, unwilling to let go. Where could she be going at such an hour? Many questions arose about this. After reuniting with his beloved, he doesn't plan to sleep separately. He would be offended and unpleasant. Because of the real Elsa's feelings, her heart was beating like crazy. She still had to push him away, but she couldn't. So she reached for the buttons on his shirt, wanting to say or do something. While she was trying to unbutton one of the buttons, the girl noticed traces of blood under the collar and was shocked. This meant that he had already dealt with Victor a long time ago, as he wanted, and she didn't even know about it. That's right. This man with a calm expression on his face considers human life to be no more valuable than the life of a fly. She needs to keep a clear head and get out of here as quickly as possible. Taking Dante lightly by the cheek, she began to say that if she had somehow offended the master, then what could she do to atone for her guilt? Normally a man would find Elsa annoying, so she could only hope that he would simply reject her as usual and leave. It was already late, and the girl thought that he was tired. That was the only thing she was worried about. He should rest. He pressed her to his chest, saying that Elsa really knew how to speak beautifully. Her plan didn't work. Now she's only stronger in the Marquis' trap. The thoughts were interrupted by a man who was clearly unhappy about something. There was one thing, but he could understand that all the words spoken by the lady were lies. It was possible that he noticed something, but it was impossible. She was behaving exactly like Elsa. The lady placed her hand on his chest, slightly freeing herself from his embrace. She couldn't ruin all her efforts so easily, because why would she lie at all? He asked again if it really wasn't a lie. Of course it wasn't. Mr. Marquis, because of her new treatment, he had been feeling increasingly anxious lately. Before, she always called him by name, reaching out to him more and more. After all, she hoped that she was the only one who could call him by his name. Almost begging him to say that she was the only one like him, she clung so much to the way she called him. And now she calls him Mr. Marquis, as if trying to keep her distance. The girl acts suspiciously, but claims that she is not lying to him. Because of her worries, it becomes clear that she is hiding something. It was very strange and unnatural for her, so in an attempt to scare her into finding out the truth, he grabbed her by the neck. After all, if this had been the Elsa he knew, then before he tried to stop her, she would have been the first to offer to share his bed. Why did she forget who her lover was? Just because they hadn't seen each other for a long time? Was Elsa that forgetful? It was incredibly difficult to divert the man's suspicions from herself, so unable to think of anything better, she continued to play the role. Mr. Marquis meant a lot to her, almost the whole world. He was her savior, who saved her from humiliation and abuse by making her his lover. That's why she asked him not to speak, as if he doubted her feelings for him. Since her words were like that, there was nothing else he could do to test her. In that case, he grabbed the girl and threw her over his shoulder, carrying her to a completely different room. Lady Elsa was greatly embarrassed by this action. Why did he do this so suddenly? It was not in his character. Carrying her to the bedroom, the man threw Elsa onto the bed as if she were a toy. This was not the most ethical gesture on his part. After joining her on the bed, he crawled closer and closer. She had greatly underestimated him, and now she would have to pay for such behavior. The girl tried to stop him, but it was too late. He was approaching her neck. Gripping it with her teeth, she was unable to say anything, only to let out a quiet groan. This was wrong, and it shouldn't have happened. Her heart was beating like crazy. This was not what she was counting on. This is the first time Dante tried to touch her first. She was not interested in her before. Perhaps it's because the moment the real Elsa has been waiting for has finally arrived, and she can't resist it. The real girl desperately wanted the Marquis' love. It was dangerous. The fear she felt made her whole body tremble, telling her that she didn't want any of this. She was afraid that she was no longer herself. It was Elsa who loved the Marquis, but it was not she who, through force, was able to tell him to stop. After these words, the man immediately left her. This was the first time for him. Why is she telling him to stop before she only wanted him? Wasn't this what she always wanted from him? And now she didn't seem like herself. He shouted at her to answer as his anxiety grew. What was happening at all? The man did not understand what was wrong with her. Dante never continued if the other said no. Why does he react like that? The problem with Victor had already been resolved, so it was definitely not because of that. But why did he start reaching out to her and showing her the first signs of attention that had never happened before? That leaves only Lucian, but there's no reason why Dante would be upset with him. As far as she knows, the Marquis had no interest in Lucian before the heroine's arrival. It can't be that it was because of him and jealousy. He acts this way because he believes that Lucian is undermining his authority. Even if it was just for show, she was still Dante's lover. Perhaps it bothered him that the girl was alone with the young duke. He was like a child who clutches his toy, saying that it is his and does not let go. Maybe this is that very perverted possessiveness. That would explain why he kept asking about Lucian. He was probably wondering how long he had been playing with his toy. He really has many ways of communicating with people. Without a drop of affection, he is excellent at controlling and manipulating people. Elsa may like it, but she doesn't. Life is like this man's plaything, afraid of being thrown out or worse. She would never want that for herself. Her only goal was to survive. Avoid the fate of the villain and live on her own, because she will never allow herself to become a puppet in Dante's hands. Avoiding the fate of the villain and living on my own, forming relationships with the main characters was a bad idea. Especially when emotions are so high, like now, that it was difficult to even talk. Covering herself with a blanket, she tried to stop him by telling him that he was not an animal acting on instinct. He himself told the girl that it was imposing one's feelings on those who didn't want them. No different from a beast, if not, with these words she brought him into a great shock. And she was also able to make me remember what happened 20 years ago in the Imperial Palace. A variety of women's jewelry was scattered on the floor, some of it broken. Dante's mother carried the blood of the imperial family, but she was only a daughter born to a servant. Although she was not a legitimate daughter, many people spoke of her because of her dazzling beauty. Whether it was the fame or the lack of strength to protect that face, her beauty became the poison that led to his mother's death. She was captured by the devil, who desired her beauty and forced her to date. That's how she became pregnant with him. He was an indelible stain on his own mother's life. She sat on the floor in her room and cried constantly, regretting everything. The doors to the room opened and a child's voice was heard calling for its mother. She didn't even turn around at this, but simply waited. She didn't pay attention to anything or anyone. It was little Dante who heard his mother's sobs. He hung his head down, knowing what was about to happen to him. While the woman was walking towards her son, she stepped on jewelry scattered on the floor, thereby injuring her feet. The boy tried to stop his mother, because her leg was covered in blood and she shouldn't move. He wanted to call for help right away, but he was stopped by the woman's hands, which she placed on his shoulders. She screamed his name as the air around her grew heavier. She was still crying, tears streaming down her cheeks, and she was blaming Dante for all her problems. Her life was ruined because of him, but he was just born and wasn't to blame. His mother seemed to go crazy when she saw him in front of her. She wanted him to die while he was still in her womb so that her life would not be like it was now. Every time he saw his mother go more and more crazy, his hatred for his father, whom he didn't even know, grew stronger. He swore that he would never become a person like him, so he never insisted unless the other person approached him first. And he was especially attentive to refusals from others. But then, when Lady Elsa said that he was not a beast that listened only to instincts, what he himself said is that forcing your feelings on those who don't want them is no different from being an animal. He couldn't believe that all this time he had been acting like the beast she described, why he had done this to her. Realizing what he had done, he agreed with her. Stopping, the girl was surprised that it worked for him. Suggesting that we stop there, it seems that Dante has gone too far with all this. Lady Elsa only advised him with a smile on her face to rest and take a hot bath. The man still couldn't get over what he had done, so he decided to do as she advised him and headed to the bathroom. The girl felt some relief, but her body was still shaking with fear. She fell onto the bed, tired and realizing that she had gotten away with it, and now everything was fine. Somehow she managed to survive this whole nightmare. But this look, it seems like he still doubts her, so he needs to be careful. She needed to leave before Dante returned. Perhaps it was out of relief, but her eyes were slowly closing. The lady shouldn't fall asleep, but her body didn't obey and she couldn't hold back. After some time, the door to the room opened from which hot steam was coming. It was Dante who had taken a bath and had already returned to Elsa. As he got closer to the bed, the picture he saw surprised him a little. On the bed lay a girl who had been asleep for a long time. She was sleeping soundly, like a small child, and was snoring a little. He sat down carefully next to her so as not to wake her, trying to do it as carefully as possible. The man just watched her sleep. He didn't want to disturb her. The lady looked beautiful while sleeping, literally like an angel descended from heaven. But as he continued to look at her, the Marquis began to have more and more questions because it was strange. Just recently he thought of her as just a toy, but lately Elsa was different, just like how she treated Victor. Instead of pushing herself, she continued to keep her distance and stay as far away from him as possible. And even when the young Duke put a red rose in her hair, he didn't even know that she could smile like that at a completely different man, and not just at him. But why Elsa, who used to be obedient and loved him? Elsa, who kept saying that she wanted him and his love. Why is she now that Elsa who pushes him away? Which of them is the real her? That was the mystery. Well, it probably doesn't make the slightest bit of difference anyway, whether she is real or not, if she continues to push him away from her. Then he will have no choice but to simply show again who her real master is. All this time, Lucian sat on his bed in his room. The very name of Dante de Savi-Oppenheim angered him. It was the man who held Lady Elsa's freedom in his hands, which was disgusting. When the girl was younger, she once received a pair of beautiful shoes as a gift. "Is it true that she can wear them?" the girl asked joyfully. The woman answered positively. It was Elsa's mother who bought these shoes for their little princess. She happily asked if she liked her gift, but they were perfect. Mother can give her anything she wants, she just has to say so. She was the sole heir of the Lefarian family. Everything in this family belongs only to her and no one else. Many years later, another pair of new shoes stood in front of her. Her father asked her to try them on as soon as possible, but from the look on the girl's face, she clearly didn't want to. The gentleman who sat opposite her prepared them for the lady. The shoemaker was paid a full 80 gold coins for making them. Of course, for the gentleman, such expenses were nothing, because when she married him, she would be able to have such things whenever she wanted. The man pressured his own daughter to agree to the proposal. The shoes she received when she became an adult were simply a means of tying her down. When her mother died, how many times, how many such meaningless meetings had there been? As if he had been waiting for her mother to leave, the father then brought home his son from his mistress. He tried to sell her through a marriage of convenience, from which Elsa ran as best she could. Although she tried to escape dozens of times, a lonely, unmarried woman could do nothing after leaving her family. Elsa got tired of enduring all this, and one day she stood on the roof in the middle of the night. What she wanted to do was wrong and terrible. She didn't understand why she was born. Her father and stepmother, her stepbrother, everyone hated her. She couldn't stand it anymore. Her father shouted at her that she had once again run away from a meeting, and yet he had gone through all this trouble to arrange this. Considering the value of the silver mines he owned, her father would not have hesitated to sell her for 5 times the price. The stepmother mocked her. What was so bad about the small age difference? If her husband died before her, all his wealth would go to them. To endure the luxurious life of people she can't even call family is just awful. If she was sold as someone's concubine, that would be the end of her life. Then wouldn't it be better to end this meaningless life? Suddenly the Marquis grabbed her from behind, saving her from death. He wondered if she really wanted to die. A second ago, Elsa thought that death would be the only way to gain freedom. But after hearing this question, she realized something. She didn't really want to die. But she would rather die than live the way she does now. This answer was interesting, and out of surprise, the girl raised her head and finally looked at him. After all, just a few minutes ago, he sent everyone who asked for an engagement to heaven, and now he forcibly saved a girl who thinks it is better to go to heaven. This was Elsa's very first meeting with Dante. It was early morning. This whole scene with the memory turned out to be just a dream. The sun flooded the entire space with its light. It was about a year ago. For the simple reason that she was curious, Dante picked up the real Elsa, who out of desperation wanted to die. Soon he became the world for the girl, like a newborn chick that recognizes the first creature it sees as its parent. Well, from Elsa's point of view, it was understandable. The moment she became Dante's lover, the family left her alone. She tried to get out of bed to go do her chores, but there was one problem. The problem turned out to be the man who hugged her in her sleep. Only later did she realize that they had slept together like this, and she urgently needed to get out of there. She tried to get out of his arms, but he seemed not to move at all, as if he had not slept at all. She doesn't know, anyway. Once he wakes up, he'll probably tell her to leave. So what difference does it make? The girl waited for him to wake up, because her attention was drawn to his image. He was usually so scary, but at least he was less scary when he was sleeping. Her hand gently reached for the man's hair, and she lightly touched it, moving it aside. But before she could admire him enough, her hand was immediately grabbed and removed from her face. She herself did not understand why she did this. Lady Elsa was frightened by such a sudden movement, and therefore reacted as came to her mind. Dante woke up to her touch, smiling as he wished her good morning. Taken by surprise, she asked if he had slept well, and if he was going to get up, he would call the maids. The Marquis grabbed her by the waist, telling her not to call them, and he looked at her with a suspiciously sweet gaze. He lay down on her, wanting to sleep a little more, but why did he suddenly start acting like this? The girl still wanted to leave him as soon as possible, so she suggested that he sleep some more while she went. But the man grabbed her even tighter, not wanting to let her go anywhere. He wanted to prolong this moment for at least a couple of minutes. She tried to somehow get rid of him by saying that she was, after all, the manager of the academy and had a lot of work. The lady had to keep an eye on the servants and check on the special student. Hearing this, Dante immediately jumped up, asking if she was talking about that special student who was the young Duke Khalid. Unfortunately, it was all so. It was a mistake, because she knew that he was wary of Lucian. The existence of the young Duke of Khalid was a top secret. Only a very small number of people were responsible for it, and now even Victor was exiled. There was no one else to check on him except her, but there was one more person, Ryan. Ryan, he is Dante's personal secretary. Even in the original story, he remained loyal to him until the very end. Right, considering that the Marquis was unhappy with her interactions with Lucian, it would be better if she refrained from meeting Lucian and left it all to Ryan. Ryan did not treat the young Duke ill and would not harm him. All this time, the man was trying to reach Elsa because she was thinking about something again. This behavior on her part angered him more and more because it was really strange. She was never like this before. These days, she often seems lost in her thoughts, even when he is right in front of her. The girl made a mistake again and angered the gentleman. What to say to her now was spinning in her head. But his expression quickly changed, and he reassured her that he was just joking. It was just the way she addressed him and how she seemed to keep her distance that hurt him a little. Dante was just being a little petty, that's all. He kissed her palm tenderly. And now, since they so rarely spent the morning together, he had an idea how to spend it. He suggested having breakfast together, something that never usually happened, especially from him. The table was set with sumptuous food, containing almost everything that could be seen. Having changed their clothes, they were both already sitting at the table and were ready to begin their meal. What's even scarier is when she acts as if nothing happened. She doesn't know what to say now. More importantly, what happened to Lucian? Ryan is responsible, so she is sure that he is not in danger, but he is always so careful that she can't help but worry. All her thoughts were swept away when a man decided to approach her. He was worried if she was okay, and if she felt unwell, because she hadn't even touched her food. Elsa brushed off the question, saying that she simply wasn't very hungry, so she wasn't eating. A deathly silence hung in the room, which increasingly weighed on the girl. The man held out a fork with a piece of food stuck into it. He wanted her to at least try what was prepared for them and decided to feed her himself. The lady was shocked by such an action. What was happening here at all? She did not understand what he was waiting for. Dante waited for him to eat the piece and hurried her a little and was not shy at all. What came over him this time? But there was no choice, and she had to eat this piece. Having said that she would eat it with pleasure then, tucking her hair a little behind her ear, she was ready. Even after eating the food that was offered to her, there was still tension in the air. Elsa asked him if he thought that Ryan himself had definitely delivered breakfast to the young Duke of Calais. All the words about him angered the Marquis because why was she so worried about it? The lady was so worried because she was responsible for him and because of the incident earlier. Before he could finish his sentence, the man shouted at her, furiously stabbing his fork into the food. When she spoke like that, as if she was putting up a wall, it was a little painful to feel. Didn't she mention it before? Elsa was getting scared from this attitude towards her. But still, he didn't think she was so responsible, raising the young Duke of Calais in front of him like this. Today he was more unpredictable than usual. Apparently he was jealous now, in which case she could use it against him. Having said that, he just wants to live up to his master. If something were to happen to the special disciple, it could create problems for him as well. This answer seemed to calm him down a little, but something was wrong. Well, if that was the reason, then everything was fine. The lady felt relieved because finally it was over. Suddenly changing the dialogue, the man decided to find out if she remembered the Diorans Club. The Diorans Club was a social club run by the second prince, Dante's maternal uncle. Usually high-ranking officials, famous figures, and nobles from prestigious families are present there. The club's membership alone proves that the imperial family is wary of Dante. Every time his uncle sees him, he has such a sour look on his face, it always cheers him up. Honestly, if this is not the character of a villain, then I don't know what could be. Well, then again, the man's attitude could be quite justified. Long ago, at a party hosted by the Diorans Club, there was an incident where Dante's mother, the imperial princess, was invited there and ended up being raped. Her shameful behavior tarnished the name of the imperial family, and the woman swore that she had done nothing. But her brother finished her off with words so that she would stop making scenes, just sit quietly and think about her behavior. It is no wonder that her blood was said to be tainted. With these words, he left her, not turning around at her requests to stop. He locked the door, not letting her out. The girl screamed for her brother to believe her. She had done nothing wrong. She kicked the door so hard that her hand was covered in blood, and instead of highlighting the issue in high society to protect her illegitimate daughter, they chose to hush it up. This decision caused his mother to suffer for the rest of her life. She will probably like this story. She said that she wants to become a worthy girl for him. While his partner, she too, must do her duty, he is clearly leading to the fact that he will take her there. When you bring your partner to the club, it means you consider the relationship serious, but Dante can't think that way about Elsa. He's probably testing her because she's been acting different lately. But no matter how much she wants to be near him, the girl cannot go, she simply cannot. As the man knows, she hasn't had a debut ball yet. Bringing someone like her, who hasn't even debuted, to a place filled with society's elite like the Diorans Club would only damage her reputation. In fact, girls who haven't been to the debut ball are often treated very badly. Just think, the lady is taking advantage of the fact that her family prevented her from debuting. The gentleman stood up from his seat, moving closer and closer to Lady Elsa. Really then, if he holds such a ball for her, then she would no longer be able to refuse him, which she could not deny in any way. So, as long as she just agrees to it, in any case, the girl will get her freedom back. With a joyful smile on her face, she said that she did not refuse. He clearly misunderstood her. She's just worried that she'll cause him trouble, and besides, the social season is almost over. The girl appreciated his offer, but maybe next year. But why? The debut ball can be held when it is needed. Instead, it's better to worry about yourself. She will have a lot of things to do that need to be spent on time. The next meeting of the club took place on June 25th. Elsa was perplexed, because this meant only one thing. This means that she will have to hold this ball within a month. Several days passed after this conversation. Ryan voiced all the preparations. The chef who supervised the preparation of the dishes was ready. The executive chef of the Leventra restaurant was appointed, and the ingredients and alcohol would be supplied from Auden's store. The Auden store was one of the branches of the Schmeichel Trading Company. And since it was Schmeichel himself, they can trust the quality and speed of delivery. It's proven. But they only work with stores, because the company belongs to Benedict. So what business does it have on them about her debut ball? The most important thing is that they say that Benedict's influence has only been growing lately. The Schmeichel Trading Company, having listened to the girl's advice, did not interfere in the Romdeo conflict. At the same time, some of the trading groups that tried to drag Schmeichel into this themselves entered into conflict and eventually went bankrupt. Benedict, not missing the chance, appropriated them all. As a result, Schmeichel's influence in the empire's economy only strengthened. Dante's personal assistant also informed Elsa that she has received an interesting gift. It was a vintage Salomon, 25 years old, a fitting wine for her debut ball. It is from the Count of Lüneburg. He asked to thank the lady for her help in concluding a major deal with Marquis Oppenheimer and to congratulate her on her debut ball. She knew it. His true goal was to make a deal with Dante. But in that case, wasn't it the Marquis who should have received such a gift? But it was only thanks to Elsa that the deal was made. Apparently, it was also connected with the attitude towards clients. Well, she probably needed to know something else about the ball. Ryan remembered, thanks to the girl, that he wanted to inform about the location of the banquet. The debut ball would be held at the Oppenheimer estate. The estate is on a completely different level from the banquet halls that you can book in hotels. The family estate was a private residence used by its members. If she was not careful, people would think that the Marquis was keeping the ball going with his whole family. She thought he was just renting a nice hotel, but there was one problem. The estate and the hotel's banquet hall were too different, and Elsa didn't want to give people a reason to gossip. The man had already tried to raise this issue with the Marquis. But the gentleman understood that holding a ball on the estate would cause a lot of problems. But it is not always possible to play on the nerves of the nobles, which was very funny. Dante didn't mind the hassle if it meant having some fun. Also, not forgetting to ask about the young Duke Khalid, he fortunately behaved well. It was worth taking good care of him after all. He was their main sponsor. And it would also be good to show this brat who Elsa really belongs to. Ryan didn't understand what was being discussed because he didn't see what the Marquis saw. Lady Leferian didn't have to worry about all the troubles because it was a direct order from Dante. In any case, Madame Tilda waited for the girl in the living room, hoping that she would not mind if he did the rest himself. She didn't mind if Dante himself gave the order, then there was no point in arguing. After some time, Elsa came to the living room where Madame had been waiting for her for so long. They hadn't seen each other for a long time, so the lady asked her if she remembered that she didn't like to be upset. Madame remembered everything perfectly well. She was well aware of her refined tastes. She probably meant extravagant. Madame Tilda, with Elsa's permission, began taking measurements, noting that she had lost a little weight. Perhaps this happened due to stress. She began to eat less and was simply worried a lot. Well, from that day on, Dante always watched her meals, and she gets indigestion during every meal. Suddenly, the girl remembered something very important. She wondered if everything was okay with Lucian. Dante hated it when she showed even a drop of concern. Therefore, the girl cannot even send someone to visit him. Suddenly, someone dared to open the door and come in without even knocking. This very person turned out to be Mr. Marquis, whom no one expected to see in such a place. He stood in the doorway and just smiled. Madame immediately greeted the gentleman, but Elsa was shocked, because what could have brought him here? The man came only because he missed his beloved woman. But lately it seemed to him that she didn't miss him back at all. The lady tried to somehow comfort the man so as not to give herself away. Placing her hand on his chest, she explained that she had simply been a little busy preparing for her debut. This, of course, although it explained everything, did not improve the Marquis's mood. As he walked away, he said that he would not disturb someone who was so busy. At that moment, the real Elsa's feelings grew again, fear of Dante and love at the same time. But it wasn't even her feelings that were the worst thing, so she simply thanked the man for his concern. Sitting down on the sofa, he said that in that case they could continue trying on the clothes. He came to look, so they could ignore it. But how can one not pay attention to him if he sits like this? Elsa was distracted by Madame, asking how she liked the red dress. It was a mermaid-style design that would flatter her figure. It would surely suit Lady Lothario perfectly. It was beautiful, but she would like the pearl necklace to be tamed a bit. Such women's conversations made the man feel sad, and he was not interested at all. But he came here for his woman. The girl noticed that he was bored, which was clearly visible on him. Most men don't show much interest in women's dresses, she was right. He really didn't care about her. Then why does he continue to sit here if he didn't care? But for ladies, the dress they choose for their debut is very important. So he tried to show interest, and Ryan said that women appreciate attention to detail. Ryan, this guy has been saying too much stupid stuff for Dante to take seriously. But as the man thought, there was no benefit from it. To him, she looked great in any outfit. Lady Elsa will think about the dress some more, in which case Madame Tilda will say goodbye and go about her business. An elderly grandfather entered the living room. He was glad to see Marquis, Oppenheimer, and Lady Lothario and did not hide it. It was a great honor for him to be invited to their beautiful home. This meant that it was time to look at the decorations. He was clearly living well. This meant that the profit he was bringing Elsa was very high. The first piece he wanted to show was a star sapphire ring, a 20-carat gem from the Lincoln mine, and a matching bracelet and pin. They are all of the highest quality. Apparently he intends to make a large profit. Dante offered to buy everything that he offered today. The old man was happy with such an offer. It was a wise decision, as they selected the best of everything for Lady Lothario. Well, she had no reason to give up the jewelry, because as soon as she got out of this damn boarding school, she could sell it and get money. She thanked him with all her heart. Each piece was so beautiful that she couldn't choose, because she was so worried about what jewelry to wear to the ball. The girl used this opportunity to win him over and get everything he has. Since she couldn't choose the best piece of jewelry, Dante took out his own, so that in that case he would gladly put this necklace on her. It was citrine. She thought Dante was more inclined towards luxury jewelry. The man himself chose it for the lady because he liked this particular citrine. This stone perfectly matched the color of her eyes. Elsa had never heard such words from him and was very shocked by it. After all, Marquis himself chose something that wasn't his style only because it suited her. The man took all the jewelry that the old man had. It seemed they were finally finished with the fitting, so he suggested having lunch together. This definitely can't be. He was just in the mood. The man also suggested eating in the garden since the weather was nice. As they walked there, those same red roses were visible outside the window. The lady recalled that very night when she and Lucian had strolled carefree through the garden. When he gave her the rose, it was exactly the same as her hair. They could not be distinguished. These memories choked the girl because she hadn't seen him for a long time, but she had to be distracted from her thoughts because Dante was calling her. They passed by open rooms. In one of these, a window was open from which the sun was shining. Lucian looked at it while in his room. Through the window, one could see bushes with red roses, around which butterflies were flying. Everything irritated him greatly, and everything was boiling inside. He had not slept for many nights since that day. He simply could not fall asleep, which made his condition even worse. This sleep pattern was giving him headaches, and he didn't like that either. The man understood the most important thing. Since that time, he never saw Lady Lothario again. But she came to him every day under the pretext of bringing food and checking on him. The Marquis was probably to blame for all this because he did not let her go. And after his disappearance, a completely different person began to look after him. It was Ryan who treated him quite well. He was the Marquis's secretary. He was polite, but one could definitely tell that he saw him as only an object, which was more alarming. Ryan always asked if he had slept well and eaten a hearty meal. The young Duke always answered positively, but it was a blatant lie, and hearing such an answer, he was a little surprised. The secretary explained that he had dark circles under his eyes and his face was very pale. He had already seen someone in the same condition, but he died soon after. Such words added more and more horror and a certain danger to his presence. The man asked for forgiveness. He was just worried about his health, after all. He was their most important student. To do this, he even asked if he needed to be prescribed sleeping pills, which he definitely did not need. Of course, there is no need to force him. They are busy preparing for Lady Elsa's debut ball, but his demands still come first. Having said this, he decided to take his leave, reminding her that if he needed anything, he should inform the maids about it. After he left, Lucian sat down on his bed, with a heavy burden on his soul. Debut ball. The girl was already 20, so it was not a bad idea to finally debut. But then why just the thought of it choked him so? He didn't understand this strange feeling towards the lady. Ever since she disappeared, the nightmares have returned, the same ones when his parents were killed and when he found out his cousin betrayed him. It pulled the man down into a deep, endless hole. Why was it at this moment that he was so helpless? And so the most important day for Lady Lefarian has arrived. It was surprising that Marquis Oppenheimer opened the estate for the sake of a girl. He usually threw parties in hotel ballrooms. Maybe he really is serious about her. But why would a man go that far? Of course, Lady Elsa was beautiful, but that was all she had, and yet he was throwing her a debut ball. All the guests were gossiping about it, as if they were some kind of predators and the lady was a lamb. They decided that they needed to observe her for now and make sure of everything. At this time, the girl was almost ready to go out. It's amazing, she always dressed luxuriously so as not to feel inferior to others. But even so, she looked very dignified. The doors to the room swung open, and a voice could be heard telling that, according to legend, a fool, admiring his own reflection, fell into a lake and died. Does she want to become that fool? After these words, the Marquis appeared at the door, but he could understand her feelings, consoling her with the words that she was always beautiful, but today she looked simply stunning. He also noted that he didn't think he had ever seen her in a light dress, but for debuts, it was customary to wear only light colors. Lady Elsa reminded him that he had chosen the necklace for her, but what was so special about that? The answer was simple. She asked Madame Tilda to sew a dress that would perfectly match the necklace. In this way, she wanted to somehow thank him for such kindness. But the question remained as to why the girl never put it on. She was waiting for a man, since it was a gift from him. She hoped that he would be the one to wear it. And also, Elsa wanted him to be the first to see how it looked on her. Maybe she wanted too much. It wasn't like that. Dante took the necklace from the box with deft, careful movements. Trying to carefully and tenderly put it on the girl, his hands even began to tremble a little. He was extremely glad that she wanted this, because she had been so cold to him that it had hurt him a lot. But now it seemed that this pain had simply dissolved. The lady was sorry he felt that way, but was glad to hear that the pain was gone. Finally, the man was able to put it on, but there was tension in the room. The sound of the necklace being clasped echoed strangely in her ears, as if a noose had been placed around her neck and she couldn't breathe. Even now, fear gripped her. He looked so intently, as if he was observing, as if he was trying to figure out whether she really liked the necklace or not. She wanted to escape from this stifling environment, which was getting worse and worse. While the girl was in the clouds, Mr. Marquis was able to take advantage of this moment to bite her. As soon as Elsa realized what was happening, she tried to stop him. But it was too late. He was able to do it. He was pleased with his actions, smiling like a little child. But why did he need to tease her like that? The man wasn't teasing, he was simply marking his own, because today she looked beautiful. It was a terrible habit of his. The lady looked at him as if she was cursing him. Maybe she should watch her thoughts too. He was terrifying, but for him, she was too sweet. After the argument, it was time for them to go out. Although she hated being his toy, she satisfied him enough for now. And so, Lady Lefarian appeared in the hall with the guests. All the attention of those present was only on her. Marquis Oppenheimer and Lady Lefarian walked together. Elsa noticed that all the noble families of the empire had gathered here, and she even saw a few familiar faces. These acquaintances turned out to be students at the boarding school, whose parents were invited, whether it was courage or stupidity. In any case, this ball is just an excuse, a kind of warning that he knows their secrets and they should be more careful. The Marquis noticed that the girl was thinking about something again. She heard that the man had put a lot of effort into this debut ball, for which she was incredibly grateful. These words made him feel proud, because he was trying to impress her. Such words only made my soul feel sick. A person who longs for unconditional love from others but has never loved himself says he was trying to impress someone. It sounds like nonsense. If he really knew what it was like to desperately want someone to notice you, he wouldn't have rejected the real Elsa so cruelly. But now that the star of the show had arrived, the ceremony could begin. The debut ball begins, if she remembers correctly, with the debutante's toast first. All the guests looked at her like wild animals, causing her body to shake involuntarily. Eyes filled with malice looked at her and did not allow her to say a toast. She was called by Mr. Marquis, who told her not to be afraid, because he was his beloved if she remembered. If she shows submission, they will consider it weakness, and the moment weakness appears, these greedy creatures will devour her. So she should have raised her head higher and looked everyone in the eye. And if anyone is rude, don't hesitate to slap them. It was strange. A few minutes ago, Dante was the one who put more pressure on her, but after hearing the words, she felt calmer. Who would dare say anything to her after all? This is the Oppenheimer estate.